Maybe a little out of breath. All right, thanks everybody. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late here. Good afternoon. This is the September 20th meeting of the Landmark Preservation Commission. I'll call this meeting to order. Let's start with introductions. Anne?
I'm Anne Wattenberg. I'm an architect nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Gary Petrie. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
I'm Kelly Wemple. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Julie Johnson. I'm a historic preservation project manager and I was nominated by the community at large.
I'm Erin Hummel. I'm a landscape architect and I was nominated by the American Society of Landscape Architects.
And I'm Larry Sykes. I'm an architect nominated by History Colorado.
And I'm Jen Capetto. I'm Landmark Preservation staff.
Great. All right, so we do have one meeting record on our agenda today. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Someone like to approve the minutes? The record, I should say.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the meeting records for September 6, 2022.
Thanks, Gary. Just a second.
Second.
Thank you, Larry. Okay. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? We'll get there. Now that we're back to in person, we don't have to do alphabetical, so I'll call each one. I know, it's an adjustment, right? Okay, great. So we have 4 who are in favor of the motion and 2 who had to abstain because we're at the last meeting. But since it is meeting records, it's just a majority vote. We don't need 5 votes, so the motion passes. All right, great. At the beginning of every Landmark Conservation Commission meeting, we reserve some time for public comments. This is for general preservation matters, not any one project that's on today's agenda, because design review projects will have their own comment periods later. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? Please use the hand raise button or dial *9 if you're joining us by phone.
My phone right now is this room, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll let you know if there's other people. And I don't see any hands raised.
I thought I saw one go up.
Someone did, but then when you said it's not about a specific project, so.
Great. So maybe that's about a project, and we'll hear from you later when that one comes up. All right. So if there aren't any public comments, we'll keep moving forward. You can see on the screen here, we do have some audio tips for all of you attending virtually. So, and you should have gotten some, I believe, when you register for the meeting. You also get this sent via email. So if you're having troubles with audio, click on the microphone icon to mute or unmute. Expand the menu next to the microphone to get some additional options. So that'll allow you to change between speaker and microphone devices. And if you do want to make a comment, you can always test your microphone and speakers. Make sure the volume is turned all the way up or down if all the way up isn't working. And then if worst comes to worst, you could switch to your phone to do the audio that way. And there's some more tips here for Zoom. If you're
the big one is just because I don't think you're aware of this. What we heard from people in the public is that staff who were sitting and listening last time said that often there was a lot of background noise whenever we shuffle papers and stuff like that. There's background noise. So if you go to your desktop setting or your audio settings on Zoom and then add a background noise suppression, that should help quite a bit for those of you in the public who are joining via Zoom.
Great. All right. So next we'll be reviewing our consent agenda items. We do have 3 projects on the consent agenda today. Commissioners, are there any questions for staff? Any projects you'd like to hold off?
I just need to recuse myself.
That's right. Okay. So Larry recuse himself and we're going to
he's leaving the meeting and I will let you know when it's time to come back. Great.
Great. Anyone have any questions? Who wants to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion. I move to approve the consent agenda as presented, including 2022-COA-067 at 560 Circle Drive, Country Club, 2022-COA-397 at 100 West 14th Avenue Parkway and 10 West 14th Avenue Parkway, City Center, and 2022-TAXC-008 1062 Mariposa Street, La Alma, Lincoln Park.
Thanks, Julie. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Erin. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great, motion passes. And so if there's anyone on the line joining us about a consent agenda item, your project has been approved. So you're free to hop off the call, or you can always sit and continue to join us throughout the meeting if you'd like. All right, quick talk and Larry back in here. Yeah. All right. So we do actually need to set a public hearing today. So it's for, let's see, 330 Alcott Street for a porch demo. So the proposal is to set a public hearing for October 18th. Would someone like to make that motion?
I could make the motion. Madam Chair, I move to set the public hearing date for application number 2022 LMDEMO-444 at 3330 Alcott Street to October 18th of 2022.
Thanks, Sam.
Second.
Thank you, Sharon. All right. Further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right. Motion passes unanimously. So we will have a public hearing on October 18th for that project. Great. Okay, so we're going to move into the design review projects on our agenda today. You can see up on the screen the review process. I'll go ahead and announce the project, and then staff will introduce the application, provide their recommendation, after which we'll hear from the applicant. The applicant will have up to 10 minutes to present, and then we'll open it up for public comments. The public comment periods are 2 minutes per person, and just as before, we ask you to use the hand raise button if you'd like to speak when we'll open it up for public comments. It'll be clear. Once we've heard all of our comments, the commission will move into deliberation and vote on the project. So the first project on today's agenda is 2022-COA-387 at 440 East 13th Avenue.
Oh, I haven't done that, sorry. That's my job. I'm doing it. Tell you. Nope, I just did something, but I just do. Show video channel, show video. And what is that computer called? Web presentation. Okay, there you go. You can. All right. Okay. So this is for 440 East 13th Avenue in the Pennsylvania Street Historic District. This project was previously reviewed at the June 15th, 2021 LPC meeting a bit over a year ago. My apologies for getting to note that in the staff report. On the left, you can see the site location of the corner of East 13th Avenue and Pennsylvania Street, outlined in red. The existing contributing structure on the site was built in 1923 and is a brick, flat roof, one-unit apartment structure. The applicant is proposing to build a new commercial infrastructure that will be attached to the rear of the contributing structure with a glass atrium connector. The new infrastructure will face onto Pennsylvania Street and will add a new subterranean parking garage as well as new apartment units and mixed uses at the ground level. The applicant is also proposing to add 2 new greenhouse structures and an atrium lounge structure atop the
contributing structure, and a new covered parking area along the alley for existing parking spaces. In the center of the slide here, you can see existing photos of the contributing structure. As you can see, the new infill structure will closely align with the existing contributing structure on the lot. So here you can see some of the key floor plans for the application that show the new grade level for the new atrium connector and infill structure. At the center, you'll see the third floor showing the connection to the contributing structure and access to the greenhouses on the roof, as well as that atrium lounge. And to the right is the fourth floor, and then you can see it set back from Pennsylvania Street there. So here's the streetscape elevation on Pennsylvania Street at the top. The new infill structure will align with the contributing structure's Pennsylvania Street facade and follows established setback patterns. The building form and massing is characteristic of the district. Like I said here, at the top is that new proposed design, and I have inset the previous design at the bottom, which was denied last year by the commission, and those are going to be outlined in orange going forward. So here you can see the compatibility demonstration that was provided, basically just showing how the new structure will include mixed uses at the ground level and a double height ground level, and the use of that glass atrium. So here's the east elevation fronting onto Pennsylvania Street. The new infill structure will be located between the primary structure, which stands at 28 feet 10 inches tall, and next to 1261 Pennsylvania Street, which is listed approximately 40 feet tall. The new structure will be a total of approximately 54 feet tall. The overall height is not characteristic of the block. However, the 3-floor kind of front portion of the structure will stand at 35 feet 4 inches tall, so it'll better relate to existing structures in the context. The new structure will be recognized as current construction, as it will utilize a modern glass atrium to connect the new structure to the contributing structure. The new structure utilizes the style of the primary structure of that front facade portion of the building closest to the street, using the horizontal belt forces and decorative elements that match the contributing structure on the lot as well. Additionally, the new structure will use building materials such as brick at that front facade to relate to the contributing structure. This new structure will also utilize a flat roof form like the contributing structure and is a form commonly found in the district. And then at the bottom, you can see the previous design from last year. The atrium design has been adjusted so it does not overpower the contributing structure by cascading onto it. And you can see the new design makes the atrium appear as more separate and part of the new infill structure. So this is the south elevation, which will be at the interior lot side. As you can see, the proposed brick at the front facade does wrap the corner before change of material to stucco. The new sliding doors, which serve as windows, will be minimally visible from public vantage points, so they may be accessible at this elevation. Here is the alley elevation with the new covered parking spaces to the left, as well as the rear entrance for that sub 3D garage. You can clearly see how the glass atrium connector separates the contributing structure from the new structure, and how most of the structure of that new structure stands at approximately 45 feet tall. And then here is the East 13th Street elevation. As you can see, the fourth floor and glass atrium connector to the left will be set back from that front facade by approximately 12 feet 6 inches, with the highest with that highest point of the structure, those elevator dog houses set back approximately 29 feet from that front facade, making the overall height of the structure less apparent at the street level and better relating to the historic structures in the district. The proposed atrium addition is located at the rear of the contributing structure and serves as a connector to that new structure. The atrium stands approximately 17 feet taller than the contributing structure, but appears part of the new infill structure and does not detract from the contributing structure. The glass atrium connector and the new structure do not appear subordinate to the contributing structure. However, the addition is at the rear and will have minimal penetration into the contributing structure, limiting the number of changes to the structure. The greenhouses and atrium lounge have flat roofs, like the contributing structure, and are set back at least 15 feet from the front facade, facing onto East 13th Avenue, with that greenhouse closest to the corner of East 13th and Pennsylvania, also set back 15 feet from the Pennsylvania Street facade. The glass atrium lounge is also set back from that front facade over 15 feet and will be minimally visible off the Belmont. And then again, you can see that previous design from last year compared to the new design at the bottom. So here are the isometrics for the proposal. At the top, you can see the new proposed infill structure for Pennsylvania Street looking towards East 13th Avenue, and how that new design steps back structure from the street to better relate to the contributing structures on either side. And at that bottom photo, again, you can see the previously proposed outline in orange. So here's a more direct isometric view of the new infill structure and the atrium connector from Pennsylvania Street, with the previous design again at the bottom. Design guideline 4.23 states to maintain typical historic entry patterns along the street and to incorporate entry features that relate to typical historic building entries in the surrounding context. The new infill structure utilizes that glass atrium connector for its main entrance, with a canopy, which is not typical of other structures in the surrounding context. There is no entrance directly into the new structure from the street. Most other commercial apartment structures in the district have centered inset entries, like the contributing structure on the plot, or centered entries with covered porches or decorative surrounds to identify the main entry. So staff believe the entry canopy on Pennsylvania Street could be improved to better identify the main entrance and relate better to contributing structures in the district. Overall, though, the proposed additions and new infill structure with glass atrium are compatible with the existing structure and fit the surrounding historic context. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of phase one with the condition that the applicant restudy the entry canopy at the glass atrium entrance to make it more compatible with other entrances to the district.
Are there any questions for staff? I just have one question. So with that canopy, you were saying that it's atypical for, and what I'm hearing is for the main entry to be in that kind of glass addition portion rather than the brick.
Yes,
So is restudying that glass part, is that enough, or does staff feel the only way to make it compatible is removing the entry to the brick portion?
so I think staff felt that this entrance could be compatible and be the main entry, but the entrance needs to be more prominent and better relate. Like the canopy they currently have shown doesn't appear like something that relates to other structures in the district. So although typically there are entries that would be directly from the building, we think this could be the main entrance. It just needs to better relate. And this particular design that's shown doesn't seem to.
Okay.
So I have a question also.
Sure.
Sort of an open-ended condition.
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit about what the process would be and whether we would see it between now and design details?
So it would come back with design details. Basically, it's asking them to design a better canopy. So, you guys at that point could decide if it met that condition or not when it comes back for phase two.
Or you guys could also be more specific
Right.
if you felt that this was an appropriate condition to add, to be more specific about what that entrance should include.
Thank you. I agree with you, Anne. That's why I was asking kind of questions.
And sometimes when there are multiple ways to skin a cat, where we provide a little bit of vagueness,
Yeah.
so you guys can have a conversation point.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions for staff? The applicant present? Promoted? Sorry. Josh.
Well,
All right. All right, thank you for joining us. You have up to 10 minutes. Please start with your name and address for the record.
Sure. My name is Josh O'Kelly and address is 2931 West 25th Avenue here in Denver.
The time is yours, yeah. Whatever
Okay.
you'd like to say.
Yeah, well, I think Crystal well covered our application. You've seen this project before. We've made some revisions. Overall, I think we're looking obviously for a mass form and context approval at this point, with the complete understanding that we do need to come back with some more thoughtful detailing to, things like the entrance canopy. What we were looking to achieve at this point is, showcase a concept, an overall concept for what we're looking to do. I do know that one of the comments that was made as a concern is the entrance or the entrance or the current entrance to the existing building along 13th Avenue. And so this being an adaptive reuse project, it's impossible really to adapt the existing historic building for accessibility reasons, and thus why we are looking to use the Pennsylvania street, which is landmark, historically more appropriate to the project, as our main entrance. It does not mean that we're going to cease to use the existing entrance off of 13th Ave. It will remain and it will preserved and it will read as a operational entryway, exit way to the building. But we are looking to funnel the main accessible entrance through Pennsylvania. It does sound like we do need to articulate that and kind of present that as a more prominent entryway to the building. And it is something that we will be looking to explore during the detailing phase of the project. Yeah, I think that's it. Unless the board's got the committee's got any questions, I'm happy to help field any of that.
All right, thank you.
And Brandon has also been unmuted, so you do have some time left.
Hi there, this is Brandon Sweeney with Bonsai Design Build. I think for the most part, Josh really articulated what is the driving factor with this revision. We see the difference between the previous submittal and the new submittal being a little more subordinate to the existing structure, and having the atrium set back, I think, gives it a little more privacy off Pennsylvania Avenue and serves as a possible area of refuge as well. But yes, it is our intent to detail that awning and the new entryway to better fit the context of the neighborhood.
All right, thank you for your time. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. Is there a slab at the fourth level of the glass entryway?
At the fourth level of the entryway, where what reads like the glass entryway, is that the question?
Exactly, that's my question.
Yeah. No, that the use for that is going to be a vault. So as you enter the space, it's going to really the glass space is intending to have a light touch on the existing building. So it will read as a light, airy glass space, vaulted. We will have essentially balconies that are going to serve as our circulation at the new addition. What you're seeing there are bands, which there'll be spandrel glass or some material that will help delineate and break up that atrium.
But at the third level, there's a connection through the atrium. Is that correct, from one building to the other?
They are connected floor to floor. And those, again, will be a light touch. If I don't know if you have a floor plan available, but we are intending to connect the two buildings via walkways or bridges, if you will.
But it's the last connections, the highest connections at the third level. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you for your time. Are there any public comments on this project? Please use the hand raise button at this time.
Giving people a moment. I don't see any hands raised.
Nope. Okay. All right, if there are no public comments, we'll move into deliberation. What did everybody think? How do you feel this meets our guidelines for mass form and context? It's been a while since we saw the last one. I think it's a big improvement over the last submittal that we saw, much more compatible. What did everybody think about the canopy in that entry?
I agree with the staff report that it needs to be a bit more reflective of the context. And I guess, yeah, question around what's the nature of our condition?
Yeah.
I have.
I personally didn't have a big issue with the entry there. I mean, I agree that detail needs to be developed, but I feel like that just happened without a condition, since we will be reviewing it for design details. I mean, they'd have our deliberation to talk about it, but I'd love to hear other people's thoughts about that. Because I agree, I think it's a little too vague to just say, study it.
I actually agree with you, Kelly. I think they know our concerns and they have our deliberations. I'd be okay.
And what I could tell you one
I actually have a friendly comment that's not necessarily about the canopy. Well, first of all, I think the applicant's done a great job, and it really just is such an improvement, and it really looks contextual, and I just congratulate them on them. But the staff report also mentions, for instance, in guideline 3.11, that the atrium is visible, and they're 17 foot higher than the contributing structure. I know that that's not a condition, but it's mentioned several times in the staff report, the height of the atrium. And the reason I was asking the question about the fourth floor is because there's actually nothing in it. And I think that the applicant's done a pretty great job of trying to moderate the fact that the new building is so much taller. But my friendly comment would be to just eliminate the fourth floor of eliminating the fourth floor of the atrium would still give those apartments views. In fact, they'd have city views, and it would sort of might be a slightly better transition between the massing. And as I said, I think the applicant's just done a great job of trying to get from the two-story, basically the three-story to the four-story. And that would just be my friendly comment. Since there's nothing in there anyway, I think it still would be light and airy, and those apartments would get some great views. And I don't have really a question about the canopy. I think recessing it back is also a terrific, the recess, the way it is right now, is a terrific idea. It's a real echo of what's happening in the historic building. And also I think that there's a real tradition of having a sort of setback piece to separate, a new structure and an old structure. All of that seems very sound. Maybe the canopy is not that much of an issue to me personally, but that's just
I agree with you about the canopy. I mean, it didn't read as as problematic to me. I think that it reads of its own time, and since it is kind of a connector, I don't know, I think that's like the more contemporary piece, and then they've got the brick on the other side, so I don't really have an issue with that personally, but if there are, I think we need to give them some more direction on how to better relate it to the historic context if other commissioners feel that the canopy is problematic.
I don't really have a problem with the way that entry is expressed or the canopy. I mean, I keep wondering exactly what would address the staff's comment if there's a desire to put a little bit of masonry down by the doors, or what that's about. I mean, the canopy itself, I think, is it's compatible with the atrium behind it. To put a kind of historic character canopy on it would not be appropriate.
Right.
The way the canopy is connected to that storefront is a detail that'll have to be studied pretty carefully. But I don't think it needs to be a condition per se. And, I've been thinking about Ann's comment about the top floor of the atrium. I mean, it's not really necessary, but I'm wondering, and I don't want to make condition related to it, but I think some additional thought on the part of the applicant would be welcome in the detail submittal.
I personally feel like if they took off the fourth portion of the atrium, then we've just got two tiers like stepping down. And I mean, I kind of wonder if it makes that atrium less, I mean, they're still using part of it as a corridor in there. So then you start to change that massing pretty drastically. I feel like it's not as simple anymore. I kind of like the simplicity of it. I feel like it reads as a connector and it reads modern. It's not overlapping the historic building. It's behind it entirely. So I personally don't have a problem with it. I see what you mean. Like, it's not programmatically used on the interior, but it's my 2 cents.
I agree with the solid massing of the back piece, included atrium. And the other thing I want to bring up is more of a detailed thing that to me is more incongruous in the entry is that hinting of a fence and a gate snugged into that spot. And now I see there is a fence around the existing and some of the contextual photos, but to me that looks like a tack on, and I would, at the detail level, look at the need or opportunity for that gate to be better incorporated for that entry. I don't think it looks necessary.
I'd also like to see in design detail how they resolve the guardrails at the roof, just because they seem, I don't know, in the elevations, they read a little tall, and I'm kind of wondering if there's a parapet, do they need to be that tall? How far are they set back? I understand that they're, planning to use the roof and they need a guardrail, and in design detail, it'd be nice to see a little bit more about how that gets executed. I did have one other kind of friendly comment that I'd like to hear if anybody else felt this way. On the south elevation, or they had an isometric showing the south east side. Yeah, that one. So, Crystal had pointed out that the window proportions on the south and the west don't relate as much to the historic context. And I understand that they're not highly visible, but I feel like those sets of 3 in the brick there are very visible, and every other window in that brick portion is like really kind of respecting the proportions of the historic windows. And so I was kind of wondering if it would be more compatible if those basically 6 windows inside the brick on that south elevation, since they are so prominent from the street view.
I agree that the building doesn't turn the corner very well.
Right. Yeah.
And so that first bay would be less open and more compatible with the street would be an appropriate contextual move.
And then, once they get to the, higher portion in the other material, it could be more modern, larger proportions.
So you're talking about just the
Yeah, just
area.
At first,
Okay.
yes.
Got it.
It just feels like you're looking at two different pieces, even though the material around the corner. So it's like all that portion that's supposed to kind of simulate the historic area. Those window proportions don't really. Do you think that's worth a condition, or is that just clear in deliberation?
I think you should have a condition if you want it to be addressed. And I also think you all should project.
Okay. Oh, yeah, are people having a hard time hearing it?
I would assume so.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like we talked a lot about the entry canopy, and it sounds like we're all good with moving forward without a condition there. Anne made a friendly comment about the atrium that the applicant can consider. And Aaron, your comments about the gates, but it sounds like the only condition we really need to make is on these windows here. So I don't know if we just want to call them the 6 windows in the brick on the south facade. Better match the historic window proportions or something like that. I don't know. Be interested in making the motion.
Writing things down.
Great.
Do it.
Whenever you're ready, Larry.
All right, give this a shot. I move to conditionally approve application number 2022-COA-387 for the addition and new infill structure at 440 East 13th Avenue per design guidelines 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.12, 4.1, 4.3, 4.17, 4.18, 4.19, 4.20, 4.21, 4.22, 4.24. Presented testimony, submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report with the following condition. Change the windows in the brick portion of the south facade to better reflect the proportions of the existing windows in the existing portion of the original apartment building.
Thank you, Larry. You have a second?
I'll second that.
I'm going to encourage you all to make an amendment to be more clear about, because it's the brick portion of the south facade, and that could be the whole thing.
Oh,
So the condition was to change the windows in the brick portion of the south facade to better reflect the proportions, which is great, but maybe not specific enough if you're just talking about the ones that are closest to the street.
Got it.
currently national mirror should break up.
Oh, I couldn't tell, so that's fine. Okay,
I
that
think,
makes sense.
if you call it the east bay of the south facade, might be more clear. The bay being from corner to that first column.
Okay, so you want to make it?
So moved.
You gotta say it.
I gotta say, Madam Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the suggested motion to change the condition to read to change the windows in the east bay of the south facade. And then I stopped typing, so what else did you say? The way you said.
I've got it here. So change the windows in the brick portion of the south side. So you're changing it to the east
The
bay.
east bay of the south facade.
I think that's sufficient.
Accepted.
Great. All right, and I know you accept the amendment, so. All right, is there any further discussion on the motion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion passes unanimously. The project is conditionally approved. All right, the next project on our design review agenda today is 2022-COA-390 at 1920 East 6th Avenue.
So our next project is at 1920 East 6th Avenue in the Country Club Historic District. The commission has reviewed this project a few times. In January 2021, the commission determined that this project and this property was contributing to the Country Club Historic District And in February of 2021, the commission denied the demolition request for the structure. And then in December of 2021, the commission denied a phase 1 mass form and context approval for an addition to the home. So the home is contributing to the district. It was built in 1900 and it's one of the earliest structures in the Country Club Historic District. It's on an atypical lot that is very small for the Park Club Place subdivision of the Country Club Historic District. And then it is also at the district boundary where the Country Club Historic District meets the Driving Park Historic District on the west side of the alley. So here is the existing home, and then here is just a proposed streetscape perspective for the new addition, phase 1 mass farm context that the applicant is proposing today. Can't change the slide. That's weird. Okay. Does that do it? It just is asleep. So the proposed addition is a rear addition to the property. Previously, the applicant was proposing to move the existing historic structure forward on the site closer to East 6th Avenue and closer to the alley on the west. The applicant has revised the project proposal to maintain the current location of the historic home, so it will not be relocated, as the commission has significant concerns about the relocation of the property. The applicant is also proposing to demolish the existing walkway that goes to a side entrance on the historic home and reestablish the primary walk to the historic front door of the historic structure, which you can see here in the site plan. This project will have 2 driveways off of the east and west alley. That was proposed in the last submittal as well. However, the applicant significantly reduced the scale of the driveways and pushed them further back from East 6th Avenue, so that drive aisles are over 80 feet back on the property. Staff feel that due to the placement of the property on the site, which again is atypical, this allows for garage access to the structure, and we do not find that the alley, the drive aisles will negatively impact the surrounding historic context. So here is the proposed roof plan for the addition. The addition is going to be separated minimally from the primary structure with a transitional element. It is pretty small in scale due to the size of the lot and also an effort by the applicant to keep as much of the proposed addition out of the rear 35. Previously, the applicant had proposed a rooftop deck on the back of the home. They have relocated that rooftop deck in this location that I'm indicating with the cursor, and that moves that rooftop deck out of the rear 35 of the home. A simple hitched roof is proposed for most of the addition, and then a shed roof off to the west side. So here is the proposed plan. The applicant is proposing to dig out the basement level and provide as much floor plan in the basement as possible. With this basement dig out, the applicant is proposing a new egress on the front facade of the home. So that is the major alteration to the historic home. So that is currently where a door is located. That door will be converted into window opening, and then an egress window at the basement level. To screen that egress opening, the applicant is proposing a brick site wall, which you can see here in this site plan here. While we don't typically encourage egress on the front facade, we feel that with the site wall, this egress opening will be concealed, and also it is set back significantly from the front facade of the home, so we were okay with that proposed alteration. So again, the applicant is going to reestablish the historic entry as the primary entry to this structure, and then in this upper level plan, you can just see clearly where that rooftop deck is now located outside of the rear 35 of the lot. So here are the existing elevations. Demolition is limited to the south elevation where an existing porch will be removed from the structure. And then on the north elevation where that side door, which is now the primary entrance, will be converted into a window opening, egress opening in the basement level. And here is the proposed addition. So the proposed addition is located at the rear. It has a max height of 20 feet 5 7/8 of an inch. The applicant has lowered the height of the proposed addition 4 feet than what we saw in the previous submittal and significantly reduced the massing as well. You can see that the addition is inset from the east elevation and then minimally inset from the west elevation in this south view. Again, simple hipped roof that will be visible from the primary elevation, and then a shed roof, that rooftop deck off of the west side that is not visible from the public right of way. Here are the side elevations. So again, the applicant is proposing garage on both the east and west elevations, but these are significantly pushed back from the public right of way, and staff do not feel that it will have visual impact on the surrounding historic context. The applicant has significantly reduced the addition footprint as well. So previously, the applicant was proposing a footprint of 36 feet 1 inch and 46 feet 9.5 inches, and they've reduced that down to 35 by 46. So it is minimally smaller, and it allows for a better transition between the historic primary structure and that proposed addition. So just for comparison, here is the previous submittal. The applicant, again, lowered the roof form, simplified the roof form, and moved the proposed rooftop deck out of the rear 35, as there were concerns over that violating zoning, and then also moved the garage openings back significantly to minimize their visual impact, and they also reduced the size and scale of the garages as that was concern of the neighborhood in the last meeting. So here I have some perspective renderings of the proposed addition. This is from the east side, from the Country Club Historic District. Here is a more straight-on view of that proposed addition. Staff feel that the proposed addition does meet our design standards and guidelines because it is minimal in scale. There is a transitional element, and it's common to find two-story additions behind one-story structures in our historic districts. Staff also feel that the applicant significantly addressed some of the commission's concerns over the visibility of the addition and the placement of the addition in relationship to the primary structure. This still is an atypical lot for this zone district, so that we are encouraging that the applicant go through a zoning only review to determine what process will be needed specifically to review this addition, as this lot is under scale for this zone district. However, the applicant has reduced the footprint of the addition significantly to comply with the Country Club design guidelines for lot coverage. It is still over what is recommended in the Country Club design guidelines. However, the commission has approved a number of additions that is over what is recommended by the Country Club design guidelines, as long as it's still within the zoning parameters of what is allowed. So it is below what is allowed per zoning, but minimally over what is recommended by the Country Club design guidelines. So we are recommending a zoning only review for this project, as it is a really atypical lot condition. But generally, staff feel that the applicant has significantly worked to reduce the mass and scale of the proposed addition and address some of the neighborhood and commission concerns at the last submittal. And we are recommending approval of this addition at this time, as we feel that it complies with the design guidelines, recommendations on addition placement, mass and scale. We would encourage that the applicant simplify the design a little bit in the phase 2 design detail submittal. perhaps eliminating some of the corner points from the design of the addition. But we can look at that in the phase 2 submittal. So we haven't included that as a condition, but we would like to note it now during this review, as it is a little more ornate than we typically see. But again, this is the Country Club Historic District where we do see more of those elaborate additions.
Thanks. Are there any questions for staff?
I have a question. Brittany, is there a precedent for the sidewalk?
There are many site walls in the Country Club Historic District. The commission has struggled with these egress openings on the front facade because it creates a light well essentially at the front. So I think it's good for the commission to discuss, but we as staff felt that it was back from the primary facade and not going to negatively impact the surrounding context. So we were okay with this.
But the actual form of the wall itself, is there a neighborhood precedent for a wall that joins them?
Yeah, Country Club has a number of site walls associated with the properties in the neighborhood.
I had a question about that wall as well, because I couldn't remember from the first review that we did of this project, whether we had any comments about the
I don't think he discussed it much because I think the greater concern with the historic home was the relocation on the lot. That was the main focus on the conversation at the last meeting.
Another question related to that is, it seems from a code standpoint that a safety guardrail would be required on the alley side. Would we want to address that in that form of context, or is that a design detail item?
Yeah, I think that would be something good that the zoning only review would help identify what exactly is needed, and then you could look at it more specifically in the phase 2 design details.
Any other questions for staff? Right, the applicant. Great. Sorry, I needed the. Is this the one you want to be on?
I would
Which would
not do that one. Yeah, maybe one of the renderings. Like this one? No. Where was it?
There's one that goes down. Right here. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Cool. Okay. Great. All right. Well, whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started. Please start with your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Angela Babbo. I am an architectural designer with Lodestone Design Group, and we are located at 501 Walnut Street in Frederick. Brittany did a great job summarizing our project, and as she mentioned, this is not our first time applying. This is our second application for an addition at this property, and our design approach this time around was largely based on the feedback we received at last meeting. As you could see in our application materials that Brittany went over, there were a lot of comparisons because we really wanted to focus on the concerns of the commission and how we could address that and improve our design. So Brittany pointed out a lot of the key points that we did talk about our last application, but I do want to elaborate on a few. Starting with the most important concern of last meeting was the relocation of the existing structure on the lot. There was a lot of concern for damage or destroying of the structure. So this time around, we have proposed to maintain its existing location to protect the existing structure and preserve its historic context. And in doing so, we have significantly decreased the size of the addition, both to better comply with the mass and form and keep us within the lot coverage requirements dictated by zoning. So we have gotten our square footage under that 37.5% requirement for this time around. Other concerns were the height of the overall addition and the bulk plane requirements and how that works with the rear yard. There were some contradicting challenges as we worked through this because we know that we want the addition to be in the rear of the existing structure, but then zoning also has other rear lot height restrictions that made it a little challenging for us to address both. So we started by just looking at how we could lower the overall addition, make sure we're keeping it as subordinate as possible from the street and neighboring properties. So we lowered the plate height of the addition and we lowered the roof slope a little bit, and we're able to drop the height by over 4 feet, which is significantly lower than a lot of the surrounding structures. And then our next challenge was the bulk plane requirements. So we took a second look at the zoning for this lot, and we found that we're able to approach this through a suburban house design rather than the urban house, which does increase our rear lot maximum height to 30 feet. So our proposed design is no longer violating any of the bulk plane or height requirements. There is a small encroachment of the east side setback, which is the existing structure. So the existing structure is already there. So that would be the only exception to that bulk plane violation. And we've already determined that it's important to maintain the existing structure's location to protect the structure as a whole. And in addition to the rear yard requirements, we have relocated our roof deck to be in the front 65%. And with that, we have kind of given it a second purpose, and it is acting as our connecting element between the two, the existing structure and the addition. We felt that this was a better and more clearly defined connecting element, giving our limitations on space within the site, since the existing structure is already located well behind the front setback. Maintaining its existing location did kind of condense our usable space back there. So we felt it was a good way to include the roof deck in the front 65 and also better establish that connecting element between the two parts of the structure. You guys mentioned you had a couple questions about that wall, and the intent is really to maintain the historic aesthetic, to almost hide it. We are open to making changes to that wall. We can change the height or the design. We can add another wall to the other side to be more of a safety measure. We're open to working with that. We really just wanted to design it in a way that it operates as the egress that it needs to be, but it does not hinder or compromise the front facade at all. So it was really intended to kind of blend in or screen, and we're open to any changes that we may want to make for that. Again, Brittany did a great job summarizing everything. I want to thank her for her time and effort in working with us on this. She helped us a lot as we worked to improve our design so that we can come here today and confidently present a design with staff support, knowing that we've addressed all of the concerns of the commission at the last meeting. We're meeting all the guidelines, zoning requirements, and on top of that, we are still meeting the goals of the property owner. Aside from, all these improvements to meet whatever requirements, the overall goal for this addition is just to improve the use of the lot. As Brittany mentioned, it's atypical. It's a lot smaller than the surrounding properties and other properties in this district. It's the only one that fronts 6th Street, and it's between 2 alleys. So that presents a lot of challenges for access and parking and just overall use of the lot. And the property owner has experienced that firsthand for a long time. So the goal is really just to improve the use of the lot and make it a better functioning home. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. I also have a few minutes if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant?
Yes, on the west elevation, there's a balcony over the garage door. What is the proposed material of the kind of railing there?
So right now, it's just shown as what would likely be a painted metal railing, but we are open to adding, making it more of a half wall or a partial wall, or using a material that is more supported by the historic guidelines, we are definitely open to changing that. Right now, the placeholder was just a simple painted metal railing.
Sorry, I think what I was referring to was the piece that's over the garage door itself.
Shed roof.
Oh,
Oh,
that
that's
is
the
the
shed
roof.
roof. I was confused by the elevation view. Thank you.
Also, Larry, materials or design details, you know.
Good
we're
point.
too much on
Good
that.
point.
Any other questions? Just have one question about that site wall that we were talking about at the front of the house. So it's called out in the plans as being 2 feet high, but that looks to be at the bottom of the soldier course. So then on top of the 2 feet is the soldier course and another brick course. So what is the overall height of that wall intended to be from grade to the top of the wall?
The overall height is intended to be 2 feet or possibly 30 inches, whatever zoning would require. But again, we're flexible to changing the design of that wall if need be.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there anyone on the line who would like to make a public comment on this project? Please use the hand raise button at this time.
I don't see any hands raised. Not going up yet.
Quiet group.
Yep.
All right. Okay, if there are no comments, then let's move into deliberation. What does everybody think? Again, we're reviewing mass form context. Stage.
Want to know what Erin thinks about the side wall. About the side wall? Well, I guess my only issue with it is it being just one wall that falls into a well, that I would either make it 2 sides of a wall or just a fence on both sides. I would probably be okay with either one, but one side it doesn't work from a safety perspective. I mean, but otherwise, I don't really have an issue with having a site wall there because there are site walls in the district that enclose spaces, and it's just enclosing space for safety.
I think they've done a remarkable job in a very difficult site project.
I agree, yeah.
And I think, and so I support the staff's recommendation. I agree with the site wall, that it needs to return to the
It needs to
building.
return to the building, right?
And how it's detailed, where it returns to the building is
We can look at
the
that.
detail.
I agree that this was a difficult site from stretching my brain back to the past that far. It was difficult, and I appreciate the applicant and the architect's attention to detail and all these little levels of things of how they really thought through each piece and how they worked together. And I think it's a really successful mass form context project.
I agree. I think it's pretty remarkable how much they were able to fit and that they were able to reduce the height by 4 feet. Yeah. Keep the building where it currently is, and clever use of using the basement, the new basement space to really help with their program. So I think it's a great job. And I also agree with the applicant that moving the roof deck actually did kind of help with their massing and creating like a separation between that addition and the existing. I also appreciate that they kind of restudied how the roof, the front-facing part of the addition roof, no longer has that front-facing gable kind of, which mimics the historic structure. I feel like in their previous submittal, that kind of took attention away from the historic structure, and now you don't have that problem. It's all kind of highlighting. It's a backdrop behind the historic structure, which is a nice modest house. So I think they did a great job. And sorry, I grilled so many questions on the site wall. We don't see that very often at the front as kind of addressing egress. And so I was just curious, and I'm okay with that height going up. I think 2 feet would probably not be Yeah. So I agree with the comments that have been made about.
I just would like to make a friendly comment, because I agree. I think this project's come such a long way, and it's really great. But I think the staff mentioned that there's a friendly comment when you get to the design details, might not want to use the things like the coining and exactly the header, the bricks at the header. But the reason I say that is because I think the site wall could actually use some more detail. And I know this is going to come up particularly in how it actually meets the house, because the applicants done such a great job of showing the original detail. They clearly understand it. So I just think some of that thought into how that wall meets the existing building, the new wall, which is going to run into the existing building, could help. But I also agree with staff that I would be a little cautious about mimicking exactly the details on the existing structure, but great job.
Agreed.
Oh, sounds like we're all on board. Who's going to make the motion?
I'll do it. Madam Chair, I move to approve application number 2022-COA-390 for the addition phase 1 mass form and context review at 1960 East 6th Avenue as per Country Club Design Guidelines B1 to B7, D1 to D5, F1, F3, and Denver Landmark Design Guidelines Intent Statements 2Q and 2 Guidelines 2.14, 2.557, 3.2 to 3.9, 4.1, 4.3, 4.7, 4.8, character defining features for the Country Club Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report. We have a second. I'll second that, Madam Chair.
One quick thing, it is, so 1960 East 6th Avenue must be a wonderful address, but the actual address is 1920. So.
Corrected, I say 1920 East 6th Avenue.
Great.
Actually,
Right.
I did accept that change.
All right. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion passes unanimously. Transforming context is approved. We'll see you back for design details. All right, the next project on our agenda today is 2022-COA-394 at 350 Gilpin Street. Okay. 350 Gilpin is located in the Country Club Historic District within the Country Club Place filing. Established in 1906, the Country Club Place filing is characterized by parkways with landscaped medians, stay-lawns, and detached sidewalks. The filing also includes rear alleys. As you can see here, so what you have on the left is the existing site plan, the right is the proposed site plan. So the proposal is to demolish the existing 8-foot 1-inch wide curb cut driveway and replace with a 12-foot curb cut and a 14-foot 2-inch driveway. And also to install a new metal swinging gate at the northwest corner of the house. I get to go.
Oh, please, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Yeah. That's my bad.
Okay. So here are some views of the property. That was a Renaissance Revival style residence constructed in 1960 and has a 2-story rear addition with a 3-bay attached garage in the rear, which was added in 2007. So here is an aerial view of the block that it's located on. So you can see there that parkway design down on Gilpin Street there, down the middle of the block, and then there's also an aerial view of the property. So according to the design guidelines for the Country Club Historic District, parkways are the character-defining element of the Country Club Place subdistrict. Uniformly defined parkways are located on Franklin, Gilpin, and High Street.
Staff are concerned with the visual impact of the proposed expanded curb cut and larger driveway on the character of the district, particularly on the character of the parkway that is located on this block. The proposal appears to be in conflict with the design guideline review goals laid out in the country club guidelines, which state minimize the visual impacts of garages and driveways. Regardless of access, garages and auto parking areas should be sited at the rear of the property. Additional curb cuts should be discouraged. The applicant has conducted a study of other curb cuts and driveways on the block. So you can see here they did measure the other curb cuts on the block and took photographs, which are included in the application. The research shows that the majority of the houses on the block have curb cuts with driveway widths ranging from around 8 feet to about 15.5 feet. However, these curb cuts are not a historic feature of the district or of this block. And staff find that the large driveways and curb cuts do have a negative visual impact on the parkway character. The exact dates of these curb cuts, when they were added or expanded, is not known. A search of landmark records does show that no new curb cuts or expansion of existing curb cuts has been approved by Landmark since 2014. So staff is recommending denial, finding that the proposed enlargement of the curb cut and driveway detracts from the district character, especially the parkway on Gilpin Street. Enlarging the existing curb cut and driveway will increase its visual prominence and is not compatible with the character of the parkway. Thanks. Are there any questions for staff?
Question, happy to the RNO review.
It's not one of the projects that we refer to RNO, and we did not get any letters from RNO. Thank you. Oh, the applicant is here in person. I'm here.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Whatever you guys want. The public be able to see you. Okay. There, is better. What?
Yeah, it's holding the phone.
Okay. And I'm gonna dual do this. So you're just a really pretty dress. I'm Christina Fair Walker. I think you guys time me. First of all, I want to stress my appreciation for the landmark and all it does to keep the history and charm of Denver, specifically the Denver Country Club. I am a 6th generation Denver family. We have a history that was involved in the formation of Denver Country Club. My family has, throughout the most recent generations, lived in or near the Denver Country Club. We deeply value keeping the history of Denver. Even further, I inherited this house from my parents, who were at 350 Gilpin's caretakers for 36 years. So please know and sympathize that when I bring up a change to this house and exterior, I do not do it lightly. This is my forever home, and I feel honored to be the next family to take care of its history. Sorry, I get emotional. The reason behind the small winding is that currently the driveway doesn't accommodate functional use of a car in the driveway. I cannot use the driveway with the car currently without any passenger exiting and entering on top of the landscape and shrubs, which are quickly dying and becoming unsightly, which is what I want to avoid. Our family car currently does not fit in the garage, and only a very small car can pull through the garage at the end of the driveway that you see. I want to provide an attractive minor change that speaks to the historic Mediterranean scape of the home, keeps attractive landscaping alive while also providing a modern solution to the safety and comfort of my family. So when I bring up safety, Gilpin, which is beautiful, we have a lot of traffic that comes through. It's a main thoroughfare for the neighborhood, and due to the increased traffic on Spear, Gilpin's bike and traffic has increased substantially on the street. And whenever there's heavy traffic and an accident, people use it kind of as an access or roundabout way. I have 3 little kids, and I always have my head on a swivel when I'm parking on the street because with them getting in and out of the car, it can get scary. So we do want to use the driveway for safety reasons. And then I have 3 kids that may be having, and I may be having more in the cars to accommodate. Sadly, the family do no longer fit into my attached garage. When it was previously built, when my parents had older kids. Also, numerous cars have been broken into and shoveled through on the street. I mean, as you guys have heard, crime has increased. It's kind of annoying, and being Gilpin where it is, we kind of get a little bit more of it. And recently, there's been a lot of scary stuff going on there, especially the first couple blocks. So I would like to kind of create a gate that's not just something that's easily opened, that's something that's on, you know, a motor so that it can be more secure. I'd like to park the car on the side of my house. It doesn't fit in our garage, and I would like to secure it on the side of the house due to increased break-in. All right, it is often stressed how important it is to keep the spaciousness that is so unique to the district. Preferring minimal fences and walls. I agree. I'm trying to make minor changes that stay within this preference. Please note that there is no mention of the size of my front yard and how expansive it is and how the driveway does not flow into another side yard, but also a small area of dirt that blends into the neighbor's front yard. I'm not asking to create new walls, retaining walls, or fencing, but just widen and expand what's already in place to accommodate a modern car for the family. I also intend to use boxwoods or shrubbery consistent with the neighborhood design guidelines preference to keep the rhythm along the block. I'm happy to show photos of the front of our house to show how we are consistent with the large, expansive front yards, and minor expansion of the driveway should not be of visual prominence. I think if anything, it would be much more attractive than destroyed landscaping from people getting in and out of the cars in front of the house. I'm worried that the opinion is coming a little bit from Google Earth photos and not actual photos and physical experience of being on the block, which I have been for over 36 years. The intention of this design will be consistent with the architectural style, and I tend to have a gate with similar decorative design that matches the security door in front of the house and a decorative Mediterranean feature. If you go to the wonderful table and study I don't have the average and median stats on all that, but you can see that we are still below the average. If you calculate the driveway average, we're below them. We're 10% below the median on the parkway on the 300 block of Gilpin. What also is being kind of left out is 5 out of the 7 driveways are bigger than what we're proposing. So we do not feel we're deterring from the consistency of the block, nor would it create a negative impact. I want nothing more than to create a positive impact that still honors the history of the home and the neighborhood. I also want to stress that this is not preservation of a current historical characteristic. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to plead my case. This process has resulted in me understanding the neighborhood and the preservation in depth, and value even deeper the beauty of my house and the neighborhood. Even further, I've grown deeper friendships and relationships with my neighbors as I measure their as we collectively care for and maintain such a wonderful historic landmark neighborhood. So, it passed. It's good. Yeah.
Hi, Kathy Ashton, I'm the architect, 2160 South Milwaukee Street. So just a couple of things to add to Steve's presentation. Can we go to the photos, please? Is that possible?
Should be the next page if you go one forward, yeah.
Okay, the upper left is photo number 1. Right as you move into the site from the driveway, there's a couple of low retaining walls on both sides. They're probably 18 inches at the sidewalk. And given that it's only 8 feet there, it's impossible to open the doors to the car in the front half of the driveway. You have to have the driveway. You can see that again also on the bottom of that photo. So the desire to have a functional use of the space in the driveway is even more diminished. We're, of course, keeping the south retaining wall. The only place to make the curb cut bigger is to the north. There's probably about 600 lineal feet of curb and gutter, 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, side of Gilpin. So the increase in our application here is actually less than 1% of that frontage. It seems to me to be a pretty modest request. So in summary, I think we're just looking, frankly, for a functional improvement here, just so that this house can continue to be viable, to be an attractive residence for the next couple generations. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't think we got your address, but we know it.
Yeah, I hope, yeah. Where I'm at.
And then, yeah. Okay, great. I have other questions. Yes.
Did you look at keeping curb cut width but expanding only the driveway?
So I think we looked at that. I think just visually, I don't know how appealing that would be. So it's more so from a I want things to look, as these homes are, very thought through, visually appealing. So that was what seemed to be the most narrow, and I'm speaking kind of for us, narrow width, but then would look visually appealing moving through the house versus having a small driveway that then goes out.
Yeah, currently, we're proposing the driveway actually to be slightly wider than the curb cut, only to provide enough width on the driveway to be functional.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone on the line who would like to make a comment on this project? Please use the hand raise button at this time.
Give people a moment. I don't see any hands raised, so. Nope.
Okay. All right, then let's move into deliberation. So what does everybody think about how they're seeing the guidelines and the applicant's presentation?
They're all staring at each other and staring down.
I guess I'll chime in. I mean, I sympathize with the applicant's challenges, absolutely. And I think the question that I asked is the same one that I think Aaron brought up about, you know, is it possible, would it potentially meet the guidelines if the driveway size were increased without increasing the curb cut size? That seems like it could be a bit more accessible on its face. But yeah, curious about other people's thoughts.
Aaron,
I'm reading this, I read this, I believe this.
Yeah, I read it.
You also have the country club ones are on the table, in various places.
I guess what I'm struggling with is it does seem like a very, like it's an existing condition that's just being widened a very small amount. And I appreciate that the applicant has done a thorough study of the other conditions on the block. So it doesn't seem inconsistent with the existing conditions. Obviously, as Abby pointed out, those are not historic. But I don't think it would detract from the historic nature of the block, given it is so common on the block to have a wider drive off of Hilton. So I guess that's kind of what I'm struggling with. I see how staff has analyzed this against the conditions, but it almost reads to me more like driveways should be visually subordinate in the site sign. I mean, wouldn't that be like a new driveway? Like there's already one there. So
Yeah, I mean, and if you look at the entire site plan, I would say the white drive is still subordinate.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too.
I would feel much better if we had the input from the RNO.
But it's not required to go to the RNO.
I understand that. I'm just saying that I would feel better about knowing how the community feels about this, because I agree. I think that the applicants made a very compelling case for the fact that this is a condition that is throughout the neighborhood. You know, on the other hand, when you look at the guidelines, I'm looking at their guideline B5, which is driveways. They say no to the driveways that are, you know, from the front, from the parkway in. But we obviously know that that guideline is all of these streets. None of them come from the back. So then you're looking at the guidelines. It's really hard to tell how well these guidelines are enforced.
Yeah, that's from 1995.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But I mean, yes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I read like Country Club Guideline B5, driveways should be visually supported. I feel like this meets that. It's not a new curb cut, so there is access at the alley. So, I feel like B5A doesn't necessarily apply, it's not new. Minimize visual impact of the curb cut, or widening the existing one, minimize the amount of park surface driveway. They've still got a very large amount of landscaped area in the front yard. Like, to me, I'm just not interpreting it the same way. So I guess I'm personally supportive of the proposal. I kind of agree that, I mean, I would be okay with them widening the driveway and not the curb cut, but I do tend to agree that it'll look more complete. It's very aligned and intentional.
The other thing I'm noticing too is that, like, they're keeping the south retaining wall where it is, and so it would be a quite extreme jog over to not widen the curb cut at all.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly's position.
I do as well. Or, yeah, Jerry.
Well, I guess I could go along with that, but I do think that the loss, I mean, the character of what's there now visually better than what the character is going to be after this stuff.
Yeah.
But is that diminishment enough to warrant a denial? I don't think this block had driveways on the front to begin with because they all have alley access. So every curb cut and driveway on the street has been something that was done after the original construction and the original design. So every driveway has diminished the character of the street. This is just 1% more, but so it's I think I'll support a approval, but because there's bigger issues to deal with from this commission's standpoint. But I do agree that proposed change diminishes the character of the street, and I would agree with Dan to hear what the neighborhood would say would be helpful, although I suspect that they won't object.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're neighbors and they all want to change their property.
Exactly.
So, and it doesn't have anything to do with preservation.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's what I'm at.
I mean, I totally agree, and I think you put it really well. And this reminds me of some of the other issues we've gotten into, because what we're talking about really does go against what is in the guidelines. And we are always worried about precedent. But I believe the precedent would, that's why, it's possible that the guidelines would actually support, RNO. I'm sorry, the RNO. The RNO would support not going by the guidelines, which are, A1 and B5.
So I'm a little worried that we're having kind of two different conversations. I guess what I was saying was I could see how the guidelines would be interpreted to not, it's just that where they would be in favor because it is existing. It's not a new curb cut and driveway. It's modifying an existing one. And so whereas I'm reading these as very much if it were new, not to do that. But it's already there, and that's how I'm interpreting them, where I feel like it is visually coordinate in the site design. And so I think we're having two different conversations, and I'm a little concerned because if you feel that it just straight out doesn't meet the guidelines, we're here to enforce the guidelines. So if that's your position, then you're probably opposed.
I think it meets the guidelines even if it wasn't totally new driveway, because it says where a driveway is needed, minimize visual impact curb cut. I could say a 12-foot curb cut is the minimum that could be. I think you could argue that even a new 21 would, whereas this is increasing it by 4 feet. Only one curb cut per property.
Which is one curb cut.
If there was no driveway there now, we would be having a different conversation.
Right.
Because you'd have to make the case that access from the street is necessary, even though there's garages with alley access. So the argument in that case would be, there are other curb cuts on the street already. So, I mean, it's a different argument, I think. But I agree that it's a small change. And so I think I'll along with the consensus to actually approve the proposal.
Personally object to more is one swing gate versus 2 swing gates.
Yes.
That to me is, it's a very heavy feel rather than having one that opens 2.
I agree.
And it looks very contemporary, I think, compared to the character of this house in the district, that I would like to see a double gate.
I mean, that's a condition that we could make if people feel that would be more compatible.
And then
with the
looking
district.
at the plan, having one swing gate, it goes so far in, you have to make sure you have enough stacking room that your vehicle's out of the way, whereas because you get 2 swing gates, you've got 6 feet to 12 feet of clearance you have to make.
I expect it to. There you go. Yeah. Okay, well, is that, it sounds like people are kind of coming to a consensus. Is that a condition that you'd like to make to, because that's their existing condition too, so if you feel that's just more.
I guess I would make it a condition, because I think it'd be also more aesthetically pleasing, but it'd be more functional from a parking standpoint.
Okay. So friendly amendment, or I mean, like a friendly comment to them, or do you
It
think
can
that
be a
that's
friendly
a condition?
comment. I mean, what does everybody else think? I'm looking. I don't know, I park on the street. I do too. I'm chilling, spending money.
Seems like having a condition for that would have to be supported by some guidelines.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with, is like, so
Uh,
maybe it's a friendly
It's just a
amendment.
friendly amendment.
At least not what I
Friendly
hear, I
comment.
don't know what guidelines support it, so, yeah. I just, sounds good, so, I mean, they've got our deliberation, and they know that that's a good recommendation, so, okay. Well, then keep in mind, this means that, the suggested motion is not what we're discussing. So, or whoever's going to make a motion, consider, what guidelines to associate with it. So, I mean, I actually kind of feel like we could use the same guidelines. I do too, actually. Looking at them, preserve historic parkways where they exist, respect the individual characteristics of each parkway. Yeah, I mean, it's not altering. The parkway driveways should be visually supported. Site design, we already discussed that we will needing that. Plan new site and landscape features to respect the character defining features of the district. So if everyone else is comfortable with that, I think we could reference the same guidelines that were in the suggested motion. All right, who's gonna do it?
Madam Chair, I move to approve application 2022-08-394 for the site work at 350 Gilman as per Country Club Design Guidelines A1 and B5, General Design Guidelines 5.3, Character Defining Features for the Country Club Construction Street, testimony, submitted documentation, and information by staff.
Thanks, Julie. Do we have a second?
All second.
Thank you, Erin. All right, call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Right. Motion passes unanimously. Project is approved.
Thank you.
All right, the next project up for design review today is 2022-COA-393, which is at 532 Franklin Street.
Okay, so we have projects at 532 Franklin. This house was built circa 1905. May look familiar. The property has come before the commission several times in recent years. The addition here that you see at the rear was approved in 2019. Alterations to the porch were approved in 2021, and you had a tax credit review for this property earlier this year. Oh, it's asleep. Yeah, thanks. So the project for today is an application for re-roofing. So the house currently has asphalt shingles, as you see on the left, and the applicant is proposing to replace these with a synthetic shingle that is designed to replicate a slate product. So you can see there is the proposal. So landmark guidelines support the use of alternative materials when the original material is not feasible, or when the alternative material is a close match to the original. At 532 Franklin, Sanborn maps show that the original roofing material was wood shingles. Wood shingles are no longer a feasible alternative due to fire danger, but any alternative material proposed for this property should replicate the appearance of wood shingles. Composition asphalt shingles were developed as a replacement for wood shingles and are widely accepted as a replacement for wood shingle roofing, including in our guidelines. They're specified as an appropriate replacement. There are also several new roofing products, other alternative products that are designed to replicate wood roofing, such as EnviroShake and Cedar, that have also been approved previously by the commission that would be options. So here you see the Sanborn maps for the property. So when reviewing your roofing projects, Sanborn maps are one of the first place that staff goes to determine what the original material was. You know the original material to determine what an appropriate replacement would be. So fire insurance maps from 1929 indicate that it historically had a wood shingle roof. So you can tell that by the X there that you see there that shows the main house had a wood roof, and then the X here that shows that the porch had a wood roof, and also the X the rear for the rear porch. Below that is the Sanborn map from 1951. So it shows that those wood roofs have been replaced. The solid circle is an indication of composition roofing. So in this point, that probably shows that it has changed to a composition asphalt shingle. So you can see there that by the 50s, it did change to asphalt shingling. But there is no indication that there was ever a slate roof or other kind of, the slate would have fallen under one of the non-combustible roofing materials. So Sanborn map groups in slate with tile, metal, and asbestos, and those used an open circle. So there's no indication here that it ever had any kind of non-combustible material such as a slate roof. Yeah. There you go. Thanks. So this is the product that they are proposing to replace it with. So the Da Vinci Province slate, the synthetic tile product that was designed to imitate slate roofing. The dimensions of the synthetic slate, about 11.5 inches by 12 inches. This synthetic slate does not match the scale, finish, character, material, composition, design, color, texture, or other visual qualities of wood roofing. And wood roofing was the original material on this house. The staff is recommending denial. The use of an imitation slate roof on a residence that never had a slate roof historically would create a false sense of history. Any replacement roofing based on our guidelines should either be the original material or should be designed to replicate the original material and be similar in scale, finish, and character to the original material.
Are there any questions for staff? The applicant present? You can go ahead and get started when you're ready. Just unmute yourself and start with your name and address for the record. You have up to 10 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Newbegin. I'm an architect and the homeowner. My address is 532 North Franklin Street, Denver, Colorado, 80218. And my husband and I are here to propose a composite slate tile to enhance the visual appeal of our house from a rustic rundown aesthetic. My request today is that if you're willing to accept an asphalt shingle, that you would accept this composite slate tile. I understand asphalt shingles may have been designed in the early 1900s as a replacement for wood shingles, but asphalt shingles are an inferior product to the proposed slate tile in durability, sustainability, and aesthetics. As a petroleum-based product, asphalt shingles are not sustainable. Aesthetically, asphalt shingles lack dimension, they flake, crack, and they don't look anything like the product they were designed to replace, a wood shingle. I don't think anyone's fooled into thinking an asphalt shingle is the wood shingle. The product we're proposing is 100% recycled and has a guaranteed lifespan of 50 years and has a clean and modest aesthetic. In our opinion, the primary architectural and historical features of the house are the intricate brick details at the bay windows and the diamond pattern windows, which we've gone to great lengths to restore. By emphasizing the texture and movement within the roof itself, we're allowing, by de-emphasizing the texture and movement within the roof itself, we're allowing the primary architecturals to be the primary elements of the facade and the roof to be an appropriate backdrop. We feel that slate is the appropriate material to make the architectural features sing and to show off the historical beauty of the house. Since this application was submitted, we have done a lot of additional restoration work where we've manually scraped all the lead paint without the use of chemicals. We've repainted all the wood to be white, and we've stained the brick for a consistent look. And all the feedback we've received from the neighborhood and passersby is first, wow, thank you for putting the love into this property and being thoughtful about it. And second, it's amazing how what we've done has really made the architectural features I just described stand out. And now it's the roof that's really bringing down the character of the neighborhood. So while slate may not be the original roofing material used on this house or on this street, it is a historically accurate material choice in 1905 when the house was built. It is a historically accurate material that exists in my neighborhood, which is technically Country Club, where more slate shingles are used than wood shingles or asphalt shingles. No architectural features are being altered, and the roof line and all the details of the house are intact. By accepting this material choice, it offers an elevated aesthetic to an asphalt shingle, therefore enhancing the fabric and character of the neighborhood. So thank you for considering this, and please accept this composite slate roofing material application.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? I just have one question. So did you consider a composite material to mimic shake shingles rather than slate?
Yes, but that is, kind of what I was describing, and what I think is an appropriate material to show off the architectural features of the house. I think the wood shingle has a more rustic look than the slate shingle.
Are there any other questions?
I do have a recap part. Okay. I just want to make public comment first. Sorry, I forgot about public comment.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Is there anyone on the line who would like to make a comment on this project? Please use the hand raise button at this time if you would.
It's a very quiet audience today. Oh, got Ryan, but you're part of the applicant team, so.
Yeah, great.
You did, and then he came down. So,
Oh,
okay. We still have time left. They didn't clear it off. We still have 6 minutes. So, Brian, if you'd like to, we can promote you as well, or allow you to speak. But why don't we do that just to cover bases?
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, my name is Brian Newbegin. I also live at 532 North Franklin. And, I just wanted to add that when we purchased this home, we knew what a huge undertaking it was going to be. The previous gentleman, Max Sowetley, was well into his 90s. He was very ill and just let the home fall into squalor. Those windows in the front, I'm glad you have that up on the screen. You can see the diamond-shaped windows. We restored that. He had just replaced it with some Home Depot specials. The whole house looked like Home Depot threw up. And we've stained the brick. My 53-year-old back will attest to the fact that I've spent dozens of hours on my hands and knees, rebuilding little pieces of wood instead of replacing them, because we've really gone overboard to try to restore the home to its original splendor. And it was an absolute gut punch when somebody recommended that we use cheap imitation asphalt shingles. And it was kind of an insult that we put so much into this to even suggest that we go back to asphalt shingles. It just seemed obtuse to me. And I just wanted to throw out that we're going to keep doing what we can to make this house beautiful again. But it would be really unfortunate for the neighborhood if we were to do that. Thank you.
thank you. All right,
We do have
other public comments?
Yeah, we do have one more. Stuart, hold on. Let me clear the calendar or clear the. Stuart, you don't get 10 minutes. You get 2 minutes. All right, you should be able to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful. All right. Stuart Hayden, 2525 Grape Street, 80207. I just wanted to say that, if the proposal isn't approved, that it doesn't negate anything that the owners have done. I think they've, obviously cared for the house. I did just want to point out one thing that I saw just in perusing the website of the proposed, composite shingle, and that it says that it's made of virgin material, virgin resins. So I would contend that it's not actually made of recycled material. And asphalt shingles, however, can be recycled. The tar can be reused and made into blacktop pavement. Not that I'm suggesting blacktop pavement is great in itself, but yeah, I think it comes down to what the historic precedence for the house is. And if they were able to find photographs or something of a slate roof, I think it would make sense. But otherwise, I think the guidelines clearly state the limitations of roofing material. That's it. Thanks.
Stuart, any other public comments?
Okay, any other hands raised?
Go ahead and move into deliberation. I know the applicant's raising their hand, but we've already heard from the applicant, so
Correct.
we don't.
Can I make a response though to the recycled comment?
Sorry, we've already heard from you. We don't reopen it to the applicant after public comments. But we'll go ahead and move into deliberation after Abby, you said you have a.
Yeah, I was actually going to say kind of the same thing that Stuart mentioned. According to the Da Vinci website, it is made from virgin resins, so that is a non-recycled product. There may be some recycled components, but the main resin material is a virgin resin. I did mention earlier, we're not saying, certainly our guidelines don't say it has to be asphalt shingle. Anything that replicates a wood shingle. So materials like EnviroShake, which you have approved before, I was just doing a check, like EnviroShake is 95% recycled. So there are other other options out there that are recycled that would better meet the guidelines than, like staff feels would better meet the guidelines potentially than what's proposed.
So you can't recycle shingle, it's not permitted here in Denver. Just an FYI.
Say it a little louder.
Yeah. It's not permitted here in Denver to recycle asphalt shingle.
Cool. And that's Brittany Bryant, who is off screen, she's staff. Thank you.
Okay, so we've heard everything we need. What did everybody think?
And before we get into that part of the deliberation, I just wanted to express a factoid that before the prevalence of fiberglass reinforced asphalt shingles, the fiber that was in asphalt shingles was recycled tax forms. Yeah. The federal government in Denver had a repository that paper tax forms were saved for a number of years, and after that number of years elapsed, the paper was sent to one of the shingle manufacturers for the grade content. That was before the prevalence of fiberglass reinforced shingles and electronic submittals of tax forms.
Yeah.
So it's a historic factoid.
Yeah. Only.
So, to get into deliberation, it's not appropriate to put a shake, whether it's a plastic slate or a real slate shingle on a roof that never had slate. I understand the desire to make the building look better, but there is a clear preservation prerogative that not to falsely improve the appearance of a historic building, which is what this is about. And I agree with what Abby said, that there are many options for a better shingle than a composite shingle that replicates or is more compatible with what was on the building originally. I also wonder about whether, I've never seen a house of this style that has slate on it. So I don't think slate was even something that was used with this particular style of house. So there's another reason that there's a kind of an incompatibility of trying to put slate on a style that didn't historically have slate. I wish there was a historian here to confirm that. But then also there's clearly an effort to create sort of a false sense of what the building should have been, had the original builder had enough money to do it, which is not a preservation, not consistent with preservation.
Yeah, I agree with Gary. I am not projecting. I agree with Gary. I think this was fairly cut and dry. I would concur with the staff. It might be lovely, but it actually, in my view, might be a little heavy looking for a house like this. And I really concur with staff on this. I do not see these particular type of. I agree with what both of you said and staff, and I'd like to reiterate what Stuart said in his comment, which is that this in no way takes away any of the work that they've done to improve the home. I think it's looking incredible, and that's great. I do agree, Gary, that to me, I'd be surprised to find historically slate on a home of this style. So to just say, oh, well, I think the original material is too rustic for it. Well, that was the original material. So I think if they want to look at something besides an asphalt shingle, staff has given them options to look at that would meet the guidelines, but this just clearly doesn't.
I think the rustic comment came from the fact that what was on it originally was a solid shingle.
Sure. Yeah.
And some of the synthetic shingles say shake. Some of them look like shakes. Some of them look more like a solid shingle. So material selection is going to be an important detail.
That's fair. I see a lot of nodding heads, so who's gonna make the motion?
I can make the motion. Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2022-COA-393 for the re-roofing at 532 Franklin Street as per design guidelines 2.4, 2.10, and 2.25, character defining features for the Driving Parks Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Motion, and Gary for seconding. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Right, the motion passes unanimously. I see that exactly 3 o'clock. Is everyone doing okay? Do we need a bathroom break? Good. Okay, staff. Good.
Are you good?
Let's do it. Let's do a bathroom
moment.
Let's do a bathroom break. So sorry, everyone on the line. We're just going to take a quick couple minutes to run to the bathroom. And
We're going to mute the room so it's not so deafeningly loud for you at home, but we will be back in a moment. We're recording again.
all right. Thanks, everybody. We're back. The next project up for review is number 2022-COA-395 at 585 Franklin.
So we're still within the Driving Park Historic District, just up the street. This applicant is requesting to demolish the existing detached garage, which you can see in the lower right photograph. This garage does not appear to be historic. It doesn't have strong architectural connection to the existing structure. And additionally, it does not show up on the 1929 Sanborn maps of the property. So staff are supportive of the garage demolition. The existing garage does appear to be attached to the existing structure, as there is a existing deck that comes off the main level of the home, as you can see on the photograph on the right. But the existing garage is not attached to the home, just has that appearance. The property does have a significant change in grade, which is a little bit difficult to document in the rear yard, just because of the existing site fences. But in the lower left corner, you can kind of see from the front yard that change in grade that is evident in the property. And the existing structure is mostly clad in stucco with a brick chimney and brick at the corners of the home.
All right, I tried to do it in advance. It didn't work. It is.
So here is the existing and proposed site plan. So with the demolition of the existing garage, the applicant would like to construct a new attached garage on the south side of the property with a second story deck off of the garage. This deck will be accessible still from the main level of the home, but will go onto the roof deck of the garage. And the garage will integrate into the home at the basement level of the home. So staff do not have concerns over the attached garage. Although it is not typical to have attached garages, it is not visible from the public right-of-way due to the change in grade on the property. It is subordinate to the existing home and will be screened by existing fencing. Oftentimes, the commission has required a connecting element when reviewing attached garages, such as a small mudroom. This proposal does not have a connecting element. However, staff do not feel that the connecting element is necessary, as it is inset from the north side of the property. And again, the connection is more through the basement of the home versus the main level, which is what the commission has seen in previous submittals for attached garages. So again, here is that proposal that you can see here where the garage will attach. The applicant is also proposing to redo some of the site work on the north side of the property. So that will be extending some existing brick planters and do some new steps to allow access to that rooftop deck. So while it's not common to have rooftop decks on garages, staff does not object to this proposal as it will be maintaining essentially what is an existing condition. Additionally, the applicant did reach out to their surrounding neighbors, and the surrounding neighbors do not object to this proposal. It is in the rear 35, so it will require a variance. Staff don't feel that it is necessary for Landmark Preservation Commission to recommend that variance, so the applicant will need to pursue a different variance to allow for that deck. So I do want to note that well, we do not object to it, but we are also not recommending a variance for this particular project proposal. In terms of the garage, it will be clad brick to match the brick of the chimney and the corners of the home, so red brick. On most of the elevations, the south elevation will have a metal panel, and that metal panel will also provide screening for that rooftop deck. The south elevation is along the property line, so we do feel that this metal panel is appropriate as it is minimally visible and is a more solid element that will provide privacy for the neighbor to the south. And then the railing will transition into a glass railing on the west and north elevation of the home. There are windows and doors proposed for the garage on the north and south elevations. We are requesting that those be inset at least 2 inches into the wall plane to maintain that historic punched opening appearance, but they're just simple 1/1 windows. The garage door is a steel roll-up door that will be mostly screened by a operable gate that is located at the alley. So the applicant does have an existing fence and site wall at the alley. With the demolition of the garage, they'll just be installing a gate in that opening. So you'll minimally see the garage from the alley as it will be screened by you can also see that site work that is proposed for the extension of some of those site walls that are here. We are requesting information on the roof decking material as well. The garage will have a membrane roofing, and the applicant has indicated to staff that they are willing to inset the windows 2 inches into the wall plane. And they have indicated that the roof decking will be a, I'm totally blanking right now, not a track system, what is it when it's raised up? Piers. Yes. So we are recommending approval of this project. Here's just some renderings of what that proposal will look like. The applicant does have the existing conditions in the packet rendered as well. I didn't include that in our submittal, but we are recommending approval as it's minimal changes to the existing conditions, and the attached garage is not visible from the public right of way and will have minimal visual impact on the existing structure. All right, are there any questions for staff?
I have a question, Brittany. On the south elevation, there's a change in material, but is there a change in plane?
I don't believe so.
Thank you.
None of the plans have indicated that.
Yeah, I couldn't see it on the plans either, but I just wanted to ask. Okay.
Great. Any other questions for staff? Great. You can go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready. Please start with your name and address for the record. You have up to 10 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry for you. I apologize.
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Bill Parker. My address is 1632 Ulster Street, and I'm a client with North Studios that was commissioned by my client, Gavin Pierce, to create a new garage in the rear of his lot. As we just saw, they did a great job of breaking down the project and the We've done a number of different revisions to try accommodating the best design we could while maintaining the existing violations of the rear setback with the second story addition and the attached garage. Due to the smaller size of the lot at 585 North Franklin Street, it's only a 4,690 square foot lot. We're trying to propose the addition of a tandem car garage to accommodate more modern size of a garage with the two vehicles. And so we have proposed this style attached garage for a few reasons. The main reason is to maintain the current access, as we described before, from the main level, the backyard from the main level of the existing home, which is currently discharges onto a rooftop deck. Currently, this west door from the main level of the existing home is almost 9 feet above the existing grade of the alley. By maintaining this rooftop deck and creating a new garage below, we are able to maintain the limited open space of the existing lot on the north side of the garage. And with this proposed addition, we are also able to provide access to the alley with a series of stairs and tiered planters. And we're gonna make sure those are underneath 30 inches. So we don't have to add any additional handrails. This just makes for a better addition. Some of the pros of this addition are maintaining the open space on the north side of the lot, which is what we currently have. And then also by pulling the addition further north, the existing garage almost sits on the property, the southern property line. So we're pulling this addition north, the full 5 feet, over 5 feet, and aligning it with the southern face of the garage. The southern face of the existing home, so as to not be visible from the Franklin Street. I heard your comment about the faces aligning. There is a slight change in plane, but it's only inches. And that's just due to the material thickness from the metal panel connecting to the brick, which you'll see later on as it wraps the corner on the southern addition. And we've shown the metal panel going all the way to the ground as a kind of to display that this is not an existing addition or existing structure. Obviously, we're trying to show that this is a new structure, and then we tie it in with the existing brick to provide some kind of connection to the past with the brick structure. At some point in this history, this brick structure was completely stuccoed over. The only thing left of that brick structure is the coining on the corners and the chimneys. So we're trying to bring back some of that brick, which is a much better feeling home, while at the same time providing modern amenities to this garage and having access from the rear of the main level of the home. We've looked at several different options, including a detached garage. And in that case, we'd end up building a larger garage. It could be built up to 650 square feet versus this addition, I think it's only 540 square feet. And we understand that it's a violation with the Board of Adjustments. We'll go before them and hopefully they can grant us a variance for this addition. But today we're just kind of looking for approval on this design before we go before that board. Let's see what else. I think that's all for right now. I can turn it over to Gavin Pierce, who's also available if he has any additional comments.
I don't think he's here. Hold on a second. Oh. Okay, you are Portia Conference. We didn't know who you were.
He's not here.
Go ahead and. So he's here. He just was not. Yes.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to, thank everyone for your time. I've been kind of in and out throughout this meeting, but I think Bill did a good job of explaining, what we're trying to accomplish. The backyard is very interesting just because of the sense that it is on such a different grade. Currently, when I park my car in the garage and I walk to the house, it goes under the current deck, and in the winter, it's all the snow melts from up top and it almost turns into an ice skating rink to get to my house. So it's there's just a number of different reasons why this makes a lot more sense for me as a homeowner, and hopefully you see the work that we did to put in to maintain the integrity of the, the historic district. But I mean, really, that's all I have to say. So, thank you.
Okay. I can add on to that as well. It was also mentioned, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yep.
It was also mentioned about the rolling gate off the back, how we currently have that site wall that is on the alley. And we've proposed doing the rolling gate to maintain that same access, but also provide, additional protection from anybody that's walking down the alley can't just walk into the rear of the yard. As you can see, there would be no gate between the left side of the garage door and that tiered system for the landscaping. So we're just proposing that addition as well to maintain the protection of the site, and we can walk around the entire garage, possibly have, a garden or whatever on the southern side, to provide even a little more privacy from the neighboring property. As mentioned, we have shown this to the neighbors on the north and the southern sides of the property, and they don't have any objections to the addition so far. We are happy to inset the windows as mentioned, the 2 inches to give it the feel from the existing home character. And the rooftop deck would be some kind of paver system, or like Denver has a lot of the products we use. There's a company called Bison Innovative Products. They have like a wood panel system that is really nice. It can be lifted in and out of place on pedestals. That way you can do any repairs you need to, or clean the membrane deck. And then on the north elevation, we've transitioned from the privacy panel, the ACM panels, to more of a glass railing to provide sunlight on the north side of the garage, as that will obviously be a problem during the winter. It'll create some ice damming, but also to just create a visual transition from the rooftop deck to the grass below. And then this deck is the same height as the existing deck. Trying to think of anything else I could tell you before my time expires. Overall, we're just trying to maintain the existing violations that we currently have on site, while making it more attractive historically to the project. I think that's it for now.
Thank you. Are there any? I think we should get the second speaker, the person who showed up under a different name, just their name and address for the record. So we're gonna unmute yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Gavin Pierce. My address is 585 Franklin Street, Denver, Colorado, 80218.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any questions for the applicants?
I have a question. I'm not sure if it's for the applicant, but the question, I'm looking at the zoning information, the existing. Oh, never mind. I don't have a question.
Figured it out.
I guess I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you proposing for that rear fence for that to be taller than 6 feet?
Which fence, I'm sorry?
Rear fence with the gate, the rolling gate?
So the rolling gate will be the allowable 6 feet, but the existing wall is almost 10 feet off the alley. If we have, I don't know if you have access to the existing images that were provided in the packet, or am I able to share some of those, or?
The commission has the packet.
Oh, there's the image right there. Okay, you can see. So we're proposing just chopping the existing wall there. You can kind of see we're trying to maintain as much of the structure as possible, as we know that's a violation of the current zoning as well. So we're basically removing the detached garage and reusing as much as possible there.
Got it. And so that existing fence would remain the wood fence that's on top of the retaining wall?
I mean, preferably we'd like to replace the fence with the same height, but if we can't go the same height, then I imagine we'd keep the existing fence.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to ask my question again. Can you tell me what the proposed lot coverage is?
Yes, it's right there on the, let's see here. Let me pull up my document. So currently the lot coverage is 1,925 square feet. We're only allowed 1,759, so we have a 166 square foot violation. If we built a 650 square foot garage, we would still have 88 square feet remaining before that violation due to the 15-foot setback. But we're trying to maintain as much of the open space as possible of the existing lot, where, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. So it's 37.5% coverage. That's what I'm reading from the proposed zoning?
Let's see here. I can do the math real quick.
It's actually on your sheet. I'm just reading from your sheet. I'm just verifying.
Oh. Yeah, I think 37.5 is the allowable coverage, where we are 3.5% over that coverage with the 168 square feet, I believe. So we are 40, almost 40% with the 19. I don't have the exact percent. Let me write 1 second.
Thank you. That's good enough.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you for your time. Are there any public comments on this? Please use the hand raise button. Do I see no hands raised? Right. Okay, then is there any recap? Okay. Let's move into deliberation. How's everyone feeling about the guidance? Yeah, scary.
Well, I was going to say that I agree with staff's assessment. I think the proposed project improves kind of a complicated situation and does reduce the coverage by a little bit. It's still a violation, but it is a reduction. So I support the staff recommendation.
I do too. I mean, since it's not highly visible, and I mean, it seems like we definitely took a challenge and really met it. So I'm impressed with how useful that backyard will be given. Oh, still too quiet? Okay. You had a very challenging site here, and I'm impressed with all that was able to be accomplished. That has nothing to do with our design guidelines, but I do feel it's meeting the guidelines and it's not highly visible, so I support the project. I do agree with Brittany, though, that we'll see how it goes with Board of Adjustments, but I don't see that we need to make any recommendations for that because it's not like there's existing circumstances or things that they're doing to meet our guidelines that are necessitating this. All right, I agree. Nodding. Okay. Great. Who's going to make the motion? Oh, and before we do that, I mean, I assume we're all on board with the conditions that were provided. I think that makes sense, that staff recommended. Okay, great.
Go ahead and make the motion. I move to conditionally approve application number 2022-COA-395 for the garage demolition, new attached garage, and site work at 585 Franklin Street, as per design guidelines 3.1 through 3.3, 3.5 through 3.7, 3.9, 4.18, 4.19, character defining features for the Driving Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. 1, provide details on roof decking material, and 2, inset all windows into the wall plane at least 2 inches.
Great, do we have a second? I'll second. Ooh, I think Erin got it. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, motion passes unanimously. All right, the last project on our design review agenda today is 2022-COA-392 at 2200 Larimer Street. So
So this is for structural alterations to the structure at 2200 Larimer Street, which is a contributing structure to the Ballpark Historic District. This was designed by notable Denver architect Frederick Carl Otherly. The building has sat vacant for a number of years. The commission did previously review this application in June of this year, but ultimately decided to deny the application over concerns that if the still channel that was proposed to wrap the stone lintel element was totally necessary. So here we just have photographs of the existing building conditions. The commission has already approved storefront alterations and modifications to this building, and there are already some structural star elements on the front facade that you can't really see in this picture, but they are there. So I can't change that. Sorry, it's okay. So the project scope hasn't changed. The applicant is still proposing to add 2 new stars to the front elevation of the building, and then support the storefront with steel on the interior, and then also wrap the stone sill lintel element with a steel channel to pull the building facade back towards the building. So the project scope is pretty much the same project scope that the commission saw in June. However, the applicant has had a second opinion on this alteration that is proposed per the commission's request, and that was done by Don Harvey. Yes. Thank you, Jen. Hi, Don. So the expert from Don Harvey has indicated that the applicant's approach is probably likely the most appropriate response and will require the least amount of intervention into the building. So while the stone lintel is severely deteriorated, to replace it would be, while technically possible, is not recommended. So based on the second opinion, staff feel that the proposed approach is the most appropriate and are recommending approval of conditions for this structural work, with the conditions recommended by the expert that the steel channel be counterflashed to protect the surface of the historic stone from rain and snow melt, and then that a metal flashing be used to protect the upward facing stone surfaces at the windowsills. So very similar project scope, it's just that a expert opinion has been obtained. Are there any questions for staff?
Well, maybe I need a clarification, or maybe it's just me. I thought that in the original approach, the plan was to pull the brick back and straighten it out. And then this one, it's just to leave it bowed. Is that correct?
It's the same project scope, so it'll have the steel channel and the new structural stars that will pull the brick back.
I must have misread the structural report, because I thought they said that the brick was so fragile that if you tried to pull it back, it would crack.
So I think that's an excellent question for the applicant, because I might have missed.
So it's actually a different scope. And the bowing makes, whether the bowing remains in place or doesn't, actually makes a big difference. So.
All right, well, that's a good segue. Let's hear from the applicant. Bless you. Okay.
And I am going to just publicly apologize that Donald, I think I shortened your name, and I think you go by Donald, and I apologize. So sorry about that.
No problem.
Right. Whenever you're ready, please start with your any speaking Provide your name and address for the record. You have up to 10 minutes.
Okay, my name is Donald Harvey with Atkinson Nolan Engineers. Address is 2619 Spruce Street, Boulder, Colorado. And I think the question
Perfect. That might be us.
move the bowed brick back into plumb.
Can you start? We heard your name and address, but then it kind of cut out.
So I paused the timing, so if you can start over.
I apologize. Is my audio okay right now?
Yep.
Okay. So the question that was posed was related to whether or not the intent is to remove the bowing from the brick or to stabilize in place. Essentially, my recommendation in my report was not to attempt to pull the brick back into plumb, but to stabilize in place and to infill as needed to accommodate that existing geometry. I see Jim's face popped back on, and Jim's the, oh, you're still muted though, Jim. And he is the engineer of record. So Jim, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, that was one of the things before that we had discussed. And the concept isn't to try and pull it back plumb, because we don't feel like we can. And as Donald brought up, it's actually going to create some undue stress in the brick of the building and probably potentially cause failure. So the whole concept has been that we were going to get this so it's stable. Most people would probably not notice if there is a bow in the wall, but to pull on the wall and get it back to plumb, it's physically, I think, impossible, barring that it's large amounts of load that we can try and apply. But that was one of the things that we didn't explain well enough in June, was that we're just going to get it pulled in as much as we can without exerting a lot of stress, and then get it stabilized. And that's something when Donald came out, we all agreed that probably could not get it back to plumb, but at least get it to where it's stable.
Great. And I don't know if there's other topics that that I need to address in this time period. I think I'll mention just a couple of things about those that stone band, just for clarification that stone band is more of a what's usually referred to kind of colloquially as a rhyolite band. It's not a lion sandstone or a more durable or granite or anything more dense like that. It's pretty susceptible to freeze thaw damage, and that's occurred especially where we have upward facing conditions that are exposed to snow melt and moisture and so on and so forth. So we do have some pretty severe weathering and deterioration of that stone band, but unfortunately the way that stone band is integrated into the load-bearing masonry walls, it is very difficult to try to extract or remove, and I generally am not a fan of patching with some sort of stone cementitious patch, especially in an application like that, where it would be particularly prone to the patch popping off over the life of the building. So yeah, I think the approach, including the flashing and metal flashing and protection, makes the most sense without essentially having to rebuild a significant portion of the wall. So a little bit of clarification on the stone band topic. Jim, was there anything else that you wanted me to elaborate on?
Actually, I'll bring up one other point. When we met at the site with Donald, we had the mason out there, and I I apologize, I don't remember the name of the company, but they have been doing this for approximately 30 years and have a history with historic buildings. And as Donald knows, we hashed probably, a half a dozen ideas, and nobody was afraid to throw out the crazy ideas. And I even threw out, well, what if we just let it fall down or tear it down and rebuild? And, it was that kind of a thing where we felt like we could make it work with what's there and get it stable. But, again, there was I'll say there's probably about 150 years of experience total out there talking through the ideas. And the one of the things that I had not realized, but the sill pieces, they were in at least 2 courses into the wall. I thought they were just in the outer course, and I was enlightened as to that it would be a pretty substantial work to pull those out and replace them. And once you start that, you'd have to really replace all of it. So anyway, again, the concept here we're doing is just to get it stable and get it back to where it's can be a working building. And I think, Donald, I remember you had mentioned, we talked a little bit about some of the
Helifix ties.
Yes. And trying to do some of that in addition to what we show on the drawings. And some of that was, we all knew that once the steel got in place, it would be something that whether myself or Donald will have to go back out and talk through and, well, what about this? Is this another option? This is what we found. But it really did come down to the mortar and the brick, nice and soft, and the outer white is actually the good stuff, but we feel like this option can work best for the building.
Right, and the Helifix, is kind of a supplement to and an effort to limit the additional exterior visible gusset plates or star plates or oversized washers essentially that we need on the exterior. So by adding some helical ties to help tie those withes of brick together, we're going to be able to limit the exterior expression of kind of bonding those withes together. So we're kind of mixing and matching a few different types of anchors in an effort to keep the visible, the really visible from interior or exterior expression of that structural enhancement. The other thing that I think we talked about in my report a little bit and on site was a little bit of some slight changes to the lintels, the existing wood headers over kind of the storefront areas have had some movement and created some diagonal cracking, some stair step cracking near the bearing locations. Structurally, that was already planned to be supplemented, but we talked about also kind of protecting that wood from a waterproofing standpoint, trying to avoid any shrinking and swelling of that wood as it gets inevitably some moisture variation over time. So that was another recommendation in my report that I believe Jim is planning, or maybe has already incorporated into the drawings.
Yes.
Any other topics, Jim?
I'm just trying to go through my notes about what we all talked about on site, because one of the things that I guess it's fire brick at that front face. It's a tighter mortar joint, and trying to do the heli screws, get them in the mortar joint and or through the brick. We felt like that was going to, I'll say, deter from the exterior, and that's where Donald had talked about maybe if we come from the inside and get out to that would help get some more stability in that. So it was actually wonderful to have Donald out there, because he brought a lot of experience in his masonry renovation experience was excellent.
Yeah, it is. Maybe one final note related to Helifix is that the coursing actually between that exterior brick and the common brick backup doesn't align because those units are different sizes, different construction, et cetera. So yeah, so there's not clear bed joints that extend all the way through the thickness of the wall. So that complicates matters a bit. I think our time is about up here.
Thank you very much for letting me come back.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Are there questions for the applicant? Yeah.
And you might have answered this before, but how is the face brick tied to the common brick? How was it done historically? Is it diagonal headers or was there no tie at all?
Jim, did you observe that previously?
Did not. I'm trying to think here.
No, we have. Could someone bring the photos back up if that's possible? Yeah, I did not do any kind of GPR scanning or anything to try to determine whether or not we have diagonal headers back there. My recollection, and some of this was actually at the exterior, difficult to see at the time I was there because of protection, but I don't remember seeing any visible expression of headers. And again, the coursing doesn't match up very well. So to have conventional headers. So my suspicion would be either diagonal headers or maybe some little metal wire. Whatever the original system was, obviously it was not working particularly well where we have that bulging condition. So I think the assumption would be with the repair to ignore the contribution of any of the original headers because clearly there's already been a failure of that system.
I would agree.
I have a question about the window replacement. So I really appreciate the photographs and the structural report that shows the bowing. I guess, and I don't know if that's on the second floor. I guess I assume it's the second floor. But
yes,
in the window replacement, how much of a bow is there on the second floor from the sill to the head? And the question I'm asking is, presumably and I believe it's all new windows. Do you have a plan for what to do when the windows are in a bulging situation?
The superintendent had mentioned to me, we kind of touched on that in terms of putting in the windows with the bow in there. And it was a little bit of, I believe the windows are thinner than the exterior wall, so they will be set back, kind of like what's in the photos there. But they are aware of that, and one of their concerns to make sure that it does get waterproofed and there aren't leaks in terms of once the windows are in, and if it's not catching that outer brick, that kind of a thing. So I have not myself specifically talked with them about the window types that they have purchased, but they are aware of that bowing.
I think we're at least 8 inches thick there, right, Jim, with the masonry?
Yeah, at least.
So there's a little bit of room for that window to be pushed in and out.
And I just have one last question about the windows. Is the bowing consistent vertically, or does it also wave horizontally?
Basically, it more vertically than horizontal. The corners are pretty well set, so it's that center in the picture there, the 3 windows and those 2 center columns, I'll call them, with jambs. I think that's where the majority of the bowing is. So it would affect those and the then the windows that are near the corners.
Thank you.
I had a question about So Donald, you had mentioned where the C12 channels are getting sandwiched on either side of the existing wood headers over the storefront, that you had recommended some form of waterproofing to help with the wood reflage there. So, and just water over time. Jim, I don't see anything in the sections, called out in the sections. What was the plan for addressing that between the C channels and wood to prevent water infiltration?
That is one of the details I'll say that I'm going to say that the architect had worked through, but I don't know that it is on the drawings. Structurally, we did not have anything shown, not realizing there was the extent of what was going on this building. Donald, I don't know if you guys, can't remember in the report if you did have a detail or would be able to help us with that detail to make sure we do get something. I know we discussed it at the site, again, with the mason and the superintendent to kind of describe how we were going to put that in. But yeah, in terms of it being on my structural detail, I did not have that.
Right. I think the thought was basically some sort of metal flashing over the top of the wood was what we had primarily discussed as an option. So yeah, I don't know whether or not that's shown anywhere, but that was what we talked about primarily.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And similarly, is there any concern for having some protection between the channel that's going to cover the rhyolite? Or is that less of a concern?
Protection kind of in which, in what fashion, I guess, you can clarify.
If water could get trapped between the C channel and the rhyolite, are we worried about deterioration of the stone?
Yeah, I think there is a need to be a little bit careful about that, but I think the proposed solution was primarily to at the top of the channel have a curved in flashing into the face of the masonry, so that certainly at least surface moisture would run on the outside of the channel. It would not be able to get behind. There's certainly always the possibility in a mass masonry wall that some moisture is going to migrate behind, but I don't have quite the same concern with that condition as I do with the wood, because the wood is going to tend to absorb that moisture and hold it and shrink and swell and so on and so forth, whereas the stone is not subject to quite that same volumetric movement. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. I've just worked on enough buildings that have, had cementitious coatings over it, arching, lots of stone deterioration behind. So I'm always wary when something's covering stone.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of patch failure, unfortunately.
Well, and we also at the site, we discovered or discussed that flashing above the channel. And then when it got to the windows, to basically run that flashing back under the window and try and, keep it as continuous as possible so that there isn't some spot where the moisture can get in. And just because the flashing might stop and start at the windows or whatever, that we have an issue. So the owner is definitely, looking at this as being a long-term investment. And we know, as Donald just said, that we got to keep that moisture from getting in at that location, because the floor below is 18 inches, maybe 24 inches below that windowsill.
Yeah.
Yes, just have one question. I guess I wasn't fully clear on, is it your intent to try to pull the wall in a little bit? It sounds, Jim, like you were saying maybe not fully straight, but pulling it in a little bit.
Yes, so the contractor and I had talked about that when we put in the channels on the inside and do the through bolts and everything going on, you get it in, you tighten it up and don't put a torque wrench on it and really tighten it down. You just tighten it, to a certain extent, come back the next morning, put a wrench on most of the bolts, see if it moves at all. Or, if they're a little looser. And that was actually something that I think, Donald, after you had left, Ross and I had talked some, and we said, do you do this over the course of several weeks or months? Or, as they're finishing up the interior, they'll be there for a while. So they could literally check it every day, every other day, whatever. But again, the intent was if you have to put too much torque into it to get it to tighten up further, that's probably the point where we're going to stop and, we'll measure it and see where it's at. But again, we realize that at a certain point, the channels are going to bow and conform to the wall. So it's more of a, let's see what happens as they tighten the bolts up.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
All right, thank you for your time. Are there any
Thank you.
questions? Or not questions, any comments from the public? Please raise your hand at this time. Yeah.
Looking, and I don't see anyone with a hand raised.
All right, any recap? Move into deliberation. Let's do it. What did everybody think? So similar proposal that we reviewed in June, but second opinion has been provided to answer all the questions that we had at that time.
I think they did what they can do.
Scary project. How you slice it.
Projecting. I'm sitting next to you and I'm having a hard time hearing, so.
I can't hear you over here, Julie.
It probably wasn't worth, it's a scary project. I think they've done what they can do. I appreciate that they went to the trouble to find any more opinions. This poor building has a lot of problems and I wish them all the best.
I do have a question about the windows, and maybe this is something you can answer, because there is a little, and I agree, I think that it's been it's a very thorough analysis, but I think we've all sort of been in a situation where you have a building or an element that is naturally uneven, and the windows are going to be new and square. And I think how they're set into the brick will have a lot to do with how cohesive the envelope looks. And so I guess one of the things I wonder about is whether there should be a survey at some point to see, I don't know, if you look at structural report, you see that it looks like there's I think they said there's 3.5 inches out of plumb. And if you think about where the windows are where brand new windows are going to sit in there, how they're placed or where they're placed might be of some importance. And I understand they have to overlap the brick, but which is just to say, I wonder if there should be an analysis of the window location after the brick got to be where it is, that staff should look at, or something, just to see whether or not the windows are located in the best location.
I worry that that's like kind of a means and methods thing. The contractor should be
definitely, yeah, no, it definitely is, but I just think it will affect, and I think that the owner has done an amazing job. But anyway, that would be the one thing I would think about, is how those brand new windows are going to look at this building that's going kind of, and maybe somebody else has more experience doing this than me.
That was new windows. That's new to me. Yeah.
usually they've sort of warped along with the building.
Exactly.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, you know, and I think it's a matter of, you know, I'm trying to visualize how much bow there might actually be across the height of the window, which is where you'd have most visual impact. Although, you know, I'm not sure where is the windowsill. I'm assuming that's the second floor.
Yeah.
Okay, the window is, there's a windowsill there. You know, 3 inches, the brick is full 4 inches that face brick is. So, you know, we might see across, you put the window in plumb, it might be 3.5 inches revealed in one point and an inch elsewhere. I think we just need to trust the carpenter to kind of figure out window by window what the best application is. Because I agree, trying to move that wall back could cause significant failure because you're basically going to create stresses in, as I see it, you create stresses in the weaker brick trying to pull it back, plus the possibility of opening up lots of joints on the exterior. It's just, you know, the whole thing is kind of like tuning a violin. They're going to have to be very careful.
I agree. It's going to be really difficult, and I think it's a really good comment. And I feel like it's a good, like, friendly comment to the applicants. I just worry about having it come back to staff for review. I mean, it'll already have to be inspected when it's done, and our COA says how much the windows have to have a minimum inset. So I kind of feel like that's as much as we can do, and it's in their hands as far as execution goes. But yeah, it's definitely a challenging project, and I agree with what's been said. I think that they've done everything that they can do, and they've done their due diligence, and I support the application as it stands. I would prefer to maybe add just because the structural drawings don't include that architectural layer of waterproofing, which does seem, I mean, I'm concerned about it. Water infiltration to the wood headers and how water is shedding and connecting, the flashing is connecting from the windowsill to just where the rhyolite sill band wraps where a window does not exist, you know, and how that just keeping water out since this structure has already seen so much deterioration over time. I would think that'd be an easy condition that they could then submit back to staff to just ensure that that is being accounted for. And I understand why it's not included in the structural drawings. It would typically be on structurals. If you guys agree with that.
Yeah, I believe there is a condition about metal flashing on at the stone band and then the windows in it.
Oh.
Those they're above, they're listed above the.
Yeah, it's not in the suggested.
Oh, yeah, it's
But
right above.
I do think that we should add a condition for that
Yeah.
wood steel composite lintel. And then I guess I just wanted to ask, while we're talking about these things, that it's also kind of a bit of a means and methods thing. So it's just it's a friendly comment to the applicant, but the idea of kind of, you know, torquing the bolts every few weeks or something does slightly worry me. The wall seems to be falling outward, and so it seems to me that just getting them in place and letting it be, then everything is sort of stable and held, and as it continues to fall out, the new steel supports will hold it from falling out further. So I would avoid adding any extra stress that isn't absolutely necessary.
I agree that, you know, the idea is to make sure that they're tight, but if they're tight, there's no need to tighten them again. But if they check them and they loosen up, they can tighten them, but not to keep torquing them Yeah.
Mortar is not known for its elastic.
It's not going to become more elastic.
My mortar is very elastic, actually.
So what is the purpose of mortar? To hold the bricks together or to hold them apart?
Yes, great.
I would dissuade you all from having a condition about that because that is up to the engineer.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I mean,
None of us
I
can
know, I'm
take
just,
it.
yeah, we're not really, it's become less brittle as you pull it. Yeah.
well, good job to the applicant team on doing your due diligence.
Yeah.
Wish you the best of luck. Who's gonna make the motion? Don't forget those conditions that are listed above. If you want to add one about providing waterproofing of the wood better.
Madam Chair, I move to conditionally approve application number 2022-COA-392 for the structural work at 2200 Larimer Street, as per design guidelines 2D, 2E, 2.1, 2.4, character defining features for the Ballpark Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. 1, flash or counter flash a steel channel to protect the top surface of the historic stone from rain and small snow melt intrusion. Number 2, counter flash the steel channel to protect the top surface of the wood header to prevent rain and snow melt intrusion. And 3, use metal flashing protecting the upward facing stone surfaces at window sills.
I'll second.
Larry and Larry. All right, there's no further discussion on the motion. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, the motion passes unanimously. This project is conditionally approved. You can work with staff to submit these items to resolve those conditions. So, there were no business or discussion items, correct?
No, and I just realized I was supposed to stop sharing while you guys were in deliberation so everyone could see, and sorry about that to both Heidi and Brian, who I screwed that up, so, and to the public. But no business or discussion items.
Great. Then, it's 4:07, and I'll go ahead and close the meeting. Thanks, everybody.